And now let's see what this bishop b4 is about. The idea behind this move is very clear. Black wants to take away the ideal square from the knight on b1 and forces white to play c3. Bishop c5. Obviously, Black lost a tempo to develop his bishop on c5, but he took away very ideal square from our knight. Bishop e3. Now we have huge threat to take on c6 and win the bishop on c5, which makes Black to lose one more tempo and play bishop b6. Now there is no time for slow development. We have to grab initiative and play knight f5. Black has here two options: g6, which is main move, and bishop e3. I think if it was our choice and a question which move to play, most of us would choose bishop e3. Because why to weaken the king side when it's not necessary? And what is the idea behind g6? The idea behind it is really amazing, very deep, but don't worry, we have it all under control. First, let's take a look what happens after bishop e3, knight e3, knight f6, the pawn is hanging on e4, f3, castle. Here it's important to play c4 to take control of the center, and we have a free c3 square for our knight, d6 and knight c3. White has pleasant advantage, easy development, bishop e2, castle, queen d2, it's all great. Let's see what g6 is about. g6, bishop b6, obviously Black cannot take the knight, gf5 would be very bad. We can even play bishop e3 and sacrifice the pawn on e4, or we can play bishop d4, disaster position for Black. After bishop b6, ab should be played, knight e3, knight f6, f3, castle. Now we have position, the same position, we still play here c4, and we have position with these pawns here, g6 and b6. Was the g6 move just because that he wanted to open a file? Not really. When somebody is ahead in development and he is in a hurry, usually it happens that there is a breakthrough in the center. And this breakthrough is the move d5. Great, amazing move. And we will compare this move, what would happen if there was no g6 and what happens in this position. Obviously it's confusing. What happens after c takes d5? Knight e4, another amazing sacrifice, which does not mate us, does not win for Black, but the play is very sharp. First of all, we have to know which knight to take. Obviously the e4 one. We cannot take the c6 one because the check on h4 is very annoying. We have to play g3, otherwise king e2, mate will come soon, queen f2, king d3, rook d8, king e4, rook e8, king d3, rook e3, and so on. So after queen h4 and g3, knight g3, Black is totally fine. That's why after knight e4 we take f takes e4, check once again. Now there is a big no-no to g3 because queen e4 wins the pawn and has an attack on h1 rook, on e3. I really don't know how to defend both of them. Queen d2, queen h1, and we can grab this knight here, but after queen c6 our king is very bad and Black has an advantage. After queen h4 we are left with two moves, king d2 or king e2. King e2 was played in a game of Olesenko-Godena in 2016. Queen e4, knight d2, looks nice, we developed with tempo. But it's not easy because our king is really very, very not safe in the center. Knight f3, rook e8. Now the knight is hanging on e3, queen d2, and a very nice move, rook a4. What is this move about? Of course, if we take on c6, black is not just giving the piece. He wants to play rook e4, and then we cannot defend this knight on e3. That's why after rook a4, king f2 was played, but then knight e5, knight c4, there are lots of threats, rook c4, bishop c4, knight g4, king g1 and queen c4. I think that black has perfect compensation and it looks quite dangerous for white, though if we put the engine, it's very complicated and it's from plus equal to equal, but I don't believe in that. So I'm not recommending this move. I would go for king d2, and we will see now the difference between king e2 and queen d2. King d2, sorry. Queen e4, bishop d3, queen d4. Now, white plays queen b3. It is not possible to take on c6 because now queen b2, knight c2, otherwise we're losing the rook on a1, rook d8, and we have to play here rook f1. I would like to get back to the position where there was no g6 and try to show you why this g6 is that important. So if after knight e5, bishop e3, take on e3, knight f6, f3, castle c4 and d5, it would be not that great here because we take knight e4, take queen h4, once again king d2, queen e4, bishop d3, all the same moves, queen d4, pin, but here white can take on c6, queen b2, knight c2, and after rook d8, the pin, white can play very easy move, queen f3. Of course, we want to grab on b7, and there is nothing that black can do. If black now plays g6, then knight c3, and black is completely lost. But if this happens in the position where we have g6 already, then we cannot unfortunately play queen f3 because g6 supports f5 square and it is very important. So if we take here d takes c6, queen b2, knight c2, rook d8, queen f3 is a very bad move because bishop f5 and we are losing this bishop on d3. That is why after rook d8 we have to play rook f1 so that on bishop f5 we are able to take on f5, but nobody will play bishop f5 because it's a bad move. Black can simply take on c6 and enjoy his great compensation. Bishop a6 is the threat, and to be honest, I like black here. That's why after queen d4 we have to play queen b3. We defend the b2 pawn and wait what black is up to. Rook e8, very important move. Any other move, let's say knight e5, would leave black in quite hopeless position because queen c3 is there and white with queen b3 not only defended the b2 pawn but also created a threat of queen c3. That's why rook e8 with a tempo to attack the knight on e3. Now, obviously, we don't want to move this knight and allow the queen to enter on the second rank. So we defend with rook e1, knight e5, and here it's very important improvement on the game of Zumsande Jones 2015. Knight a3. In the game, queen c3 was played, and after queen f4, black had quite good compensation. It ended in a draw, and it was very, very sharp. But I think that knight a3 is much better. We develop, and after knight a3, black has to do something. With knight e5, there was no direct threat, so black also develops. Bishop d3. Let's say if knight d3, then obviously we don't take queen d3 because b2 pawn is hanging. But after knight d3, there is a great move, knight ac2. ac2, not ec2, to allow queen f2 check. And afterwards we will grab this d3 knight, the queen has to go, and we will enjoy our extra piece. That's why after knight a3, bishop d7, knight ac2, queen f4. Once again, we have an extra piece, but black has quite good compensation for it. Our king is in the center, and black pieces are also very active in the center attacking. But for now, we're quite safe. After queen f4, queen c3, we give up the h2 pawn because for now it's not important. On the other hand, it also opens the h file for us. So after queen h2, we can play bishop e2. And the idea behind this move is that we are going from the attack on d3, also controlling the diagonal, d1, h5 diagonal, and at some point we would like to play rook h1. For example, now if black plays move like rook d8, then rook d1 is possible, rook h1 is possible, then we would hide our king to c1, and we would really enjoy our extra piece. But after queen h2 and bishop e2, probably black has to play something like queen g3 to get away from rook h1 type of moves, and still we can play king c1 right here, or a3 with the idea of rook d1 and king c1. I think white has quite pleasant position and huge chances, huge winning chances. So see you in the next video for next sidelines.